Distinguished guests, honorable members and leaders of Habanim Sephardic congregation, UCLA Chancellor Jean Block, Humanities Dean David Skaberg, UCLA colleagues, friends, our visitors from Israel, Morocco, France, Canada, and beyond. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. My name is Sarah Abrevaya Stein, and I am Sady and Ludwig Kahn Director of the Leve Center for Jewish Studies, Viterbi Family Chair in Mediterranean Jewish Studies. Thank you. Thank you, and a professor of history at UCLA. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome you to UCLA on behalf of the Leve Center for Jewish Studies as we celebrate the official launch of the Moroccan Jewish Studies Initiative at UCLA. At the Leve Center for Jewish Studies and at UCLA, we are committed to researching and teaching the breadth of the North African and North African Jewish experience. Today's inauguration of Moroccan Jewish Studies is the culmination of years of teaching undergraduates and graduate students in the social sciences and humanities, years of public programming on the Jewish communities of Morocco and North Africa, and years of scholarly work, including the production of books, articles, online exhibits, and translations of scholarship in the field into Hebrew, Arabic, and French. The initiative we are launching today reflects our broad collaboration with our students, with colleagues across the UC system and the state of California, and with academic partners across the country and the world. We are so pleased that you have chosen to support our efforts by gathering with us today to learn and to celebrate Morocco Day. Thanks are due to many wonderful people for today's event. My dear colleague and friend Aomar Boum has been an instrumental visionary. And also, I know you will all agree, a tireless connector. The staff of the Leve Center, including Vivian Hollenbeck, Raina Chung, David Wu, and Chelsea White, and Rebecca Glassberg, have as ever been maximally professional in their efforts, while our brilliant colleagues in development, Lindsay Walton, Yarel Castellanos, Lauren Schneider, are nothing short of awe-inspiring to work with. Rav Biton and Jason Rimoch have been wise and trusted counselors, and Jason and Talia Rimoch, generous funders, along with the Natalie Limonick program on Jewish civilization in honor of Miriam Nisell Rose. I also want to thank the Embassy of the Kingdom of Morocco and La Royale Air Maroc for sponsoring today's musical program and bringing our musicians. And finally, my warmest thanks to members of the Moroccan Jewish community in Los Angeles for your invaluable support. Before I pass the microphone, I ask you, please, for your understanding as we ask you to mask throughout the event as we are inside in UCLA. And now I would like to introduce you to Chancellor Jean Block, Chancellor of UCLA since 2008. Under Chancellor Block's leadership, UCLA has been named 5 years in a row the #1 public university in the United States. Our profile has grown internationally, and we have received beyond $14.3 billion annually in research grants. An expert in neuroscience, Chancellor Block has been a long-standing friend and advocate of the Leve Center for Jewish Studies, and I am honored to turn the podium to him. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Stein, and good afternoon to our guests. And for some of you, welcome to UCLA, although I suspect all of you have been to UCLA sometime in the last few years. So I'm glad to be with you for Los Angeles' second Morocco Day, and grateful to be able to commemorate the occasion in person. It's just a few events we've had in person so far. This is all really new to us, and it's great to see everyone in 3 dimensions finally. We've been doing an awful lot, all of us have been doing an awful lot of Zoom over the last few years. So it's an honor to come together with so many members of our extended Moroccan community to celebrate the rich history, culture, and many accomplishments of Moroccan peoples. I'm especially excited about this event also marks the official launch of the Leve Center for Jewish Studies' new Moroccan Jewish Studies Initiative. This initiative provides important opportunities to advance understanding of the histories, way of life, arts, languages, the cultures of Moroccan Jews, and Jews from North Africa more generally. I'm proud that UCLA has made ourselves into a destination for such scholarship, and certain that this new initiative will spur greater and more widespread inquiry within the field. The Moroccan Jewish Studies Initiative builds upon so many other efforts at UCLA to apply a critical eye to all elements of the Jewish experience. Through the Leve Center, the Amado program, the UCLA Viterbi Family Program, and the Nazarian Center, UCLA has become a comprehensive hub for scholarship covering the areas of Jewish studies, Sephardic studies, Mediterranean Jewish studies, Israel studies, the studies of Hebrew and Yiddish, and much more. Truly an incredible and comprehensive attempt to really understand the many different aspects worldwide of Jewish culture. The diversity of the Jewish peoples and the cultures from around the world deserve this kind of nuanced and in-depth research and thinking that UCLA scholars have brought to this work. Of course, this work is global in nature and requires robust international relationships, and I'm proud that our scholarship rests on a foundation of collaboration between UCLA and institutions really around the world. This really does require much more than a single institution to gain these insights. The Moroccan Jewish Studies Initiative only adds to this. New partnerships with our Moroccan counterparts will help ensure that the understandings of the issues affecting North African Jews are informed by the experiences, knowledge, and insights of those in the region. In an increasingly interconnected world, this kind of international cooperation should be the standards to which we all aspire. And I'm optimistic that the relationships emerging from this new initiative will deepen the ties between Morocco and the very international city of Los Angeles, and even the United States. I hope this really leads to greater understanding and appreciation. Now, to continue the program, I'm pleased to introduce Aomar Boum, Professor of Anthropology and the Maurice Amado Chair of Sephardic Studies. Professor Boum's training in anthropology, history, and Middle Eastern and North African studies has fueled his expansive vision of Sephardic studies. At the Leve Center, Professor Boum, along with the Leve Center director, Professor Stein, have led efforts to build partnerships with the Moroccan Jewish community both here and in Morocco, and have played a central part in making UCLA a destination for those pursuing scholarship related to North African Jews. So thank you very much. I am extremely excited about this initiative. This is important for us at UCLA. And please welcome Professor Aomar Boum.
Thank you, Chancellor Block, for the warm introduction and for being here today to support our initiative. Good afternoon, everyone. As we say in Moroccan Arabic, مرحبا بكم Los Angeles, UCLA. Welcome to UCLA. Historically, Moroccan Jews are one of the largest Jewish communities of the Arab and Islamic world, and among the most studied and researched Jewish communities. We pledge to support and further research on Sephardic communities in North Africa, Israel, and the other diasporic regions of the world, including the Americas. At UCLA, we cherish and uphold the principles of local and global community engagement. As Chancellor Block mentioned in his introductory note, UCLA is always seeking to widen its stand by welcoming new communities with which it can engage. At the Leve Center for Jewish Studies, and through the Moroccan Jewish Studies Initiative, we've created a foundation for a collaborative program with the community in Los Angeles. Over the last 5 years, we have built strong relations with members of this community, as well as other Jewish community families across Los Angeles. We have shared our research and benefited from their memories, family documents, and experiences. In the future, we hope to take our classrooms to the community to highlight how Moroccan Jews transformed Los Angeles and are transformed by it. We're committed to a Moroccan Jewish Studies initiative that builds partnerships with other member institutions of the UC system, including UC Berkeley, UC Davis, and other, as well as USC, and with Moroccan universities, especially Mohammed V University and the Université Internationale de Rabat, and whose president is present among us, Dr. Nordin Muaddib. For the last 5 years, we have also partnered in particular with the Université Internationale de Rabat and the University Mohammed V to create and further research and translation initiatives. Through this work, we are expanding the availability of English language scholarship on Moroccan and North African Jews by translating them into French and Arabic. We're pleased that UCLA, the UC system, and the state of California house some of the leading scholars of Moroccan Judaism, some of whom are present with us today. And I thank sincerely. We meet today to celebrate this partnership with the Moroccan Jewish community in Los Angeles by highlighting the musical connections that Sephardic and Moroccan communities have maintained and preserved across the globe and continue to perform and celebrate in their synagogues and homes. We're pleased to have with us some special guests. Chris Silver, Dr. Chris Silver, a professor of Jewish history and culture in the Department of Jewish Studies at McGill University, and a leading scholar of Moroccan and North African Jewish music, and musicians Moshe Luke and Abdelrahim Sweri. We will begin with a short talk by Professor Silver, about 15 to 20 minutes, and finish with a musical performance, about an hour, by Moshe Luke and Abdelrahim Sweri. Let me first introduce the speakers. Dr. Christopher Silver is the Siegel Family Assistant Professor in Jewish History and Culture in the Department of Jewish Studies at McGill University. He earned his PhD in history from UCLA. He is the author of numerous articles on history and music in North Africa, including most recently in the International Journal of Middle Eastern Studies. His first book, Recording History, Jews, Muslims, and Music Across 20th Century North Africa, is forthcoming from Stanford University Press. Moshe Luke is a well-known and respected composer and poet. His professional career began in his youth. He was born and raised in France, where he lived, read, and dreamed music. He inherited his love of poetry and music from his father and from his uncle, Haim Luke, a famous scholar and poet and a former rabbi of Habanim Sephardic congregation of Los Angeles. A popular musician of Andalusian music, Abdelrahim Sweri was born in Essaouira, Morocco. His father, a local imam, preacher in a mosque close to the Jewish neighborhood, had an exceptional voice, and that nearby Jewish families used to wake up in the morning just to listen to his call for prayer. Later, his father joined a Jewish musical group of Essaouira in the late 1940s, early 50s, as the only Muslim singer. Influenced by his father and later major figures of Andalusian music, especially the iconic masters Abdelkarim Rais and Mohammed Bajdoub, Sweri is one of the best and successful artists of Andalusian music today. Please welcome Dr. Christopher Silver.
It's a great honor to be here. I have many thanks that I'd like to extend. It's incredibly emotional to be here as well. So I just want to keep this part short, but this is the first time that I've left not just Canada, but Quebec in 2 years. So to be here with you as it's 100% snowing tomorrow and it's 90 degrees here is it's emotional in many ways. So thank you. Nearly 70 years ago to the day, and just before midnight, Sami al-Maghribi approached the microphone at the Royal Palace and official residency of Sultan Mohammed V in Rabat. For the occasion of Throne Day, Eid al-Arsh, a celebration originally conceived of by an emerging set of Moroccan nationalists in 1933, the Sultan himself had requested the presence of the star Jewish artist. That evening, or really early morning, Al-Maghribi began to provide the Moroccan March to Independence with its soundtrack. In a letter to his brother recounting the event, Al-Maghribi sang a triumphant note, gushing that he had sung patriotic compositions of his own creation alongside a number of his in-demand hits, quote, before some 2,000 Muslims and before Crown Prince Moulay al-Hassan, who presided over the soirée where the best musical and theatrical troupes of Morocco had passed through. My success has exceeded the limits of my wildest dreams. The ovation given to me by the crowd was nothing like the simple applause received by the other artists. Then came the congratulations of all the Muslim personalities, which touched me deeply, end quote. While never mentioned by name, one of the patriotic compositions in question was almost certainly an initial version of Fi Aidarshik Ya Sultan, On Your Throne Day, O Sultan, a record released, as you can see here, on Al-Maghribi's own Semiphone label in 1955, as the Sultan was returned from forced exile and as Moroccan independence from France seemed all but a fait accompli. To be sure, he was not the only one to exalt the sovereign and the nation on 10-inch shellac record. Here he was joined by a great many Jewish artists of his era, like Zohar al-Fassia and Albert Suissa, and their many Muslim musical analogues, all of whom in fact stood at the tail end of a recording industry whose foundations had been laid more than 5 decades earlier. Over the course of the first half of the 20th century, thousands of individual phonograph records were crafted and released by and for Moroccans. The vocalists and instrumentalists behind them ported their real names, stage names, and a host of well-deserved honorifics. These cultural icons and tastemakers hailed disproportionately from the country's sizable Jewish minority, much like the aforementioned and universally adored Zohar al-Fassia and Sami al-Maghribi. But while the many others who took to the phonograph horn and the microphone before them may be less well known, it does not mean that their voices are any less deserving of our attention. Already in 1913, for example, a certain Ma'alim Joseph Ermale was recording for the gramophone label. Soon thereafter, Judah Torjaman of Larash and Yasmin Tanjawiya and Solika, a female duo from Tangier, joined the roster of the prestigious global outfit. Just a few short years later, Kai Matar, Shalom Ben Chaim, Shlomo Swiri, and the comedic pair of Simon Ohayon and Ezra Cohen proved to be Pate's most popular. Turning to Columbia Records, or Polydor, or Odeon, or the many other labels that moved into Morocco between the 2 world wars, would serve up dozens of other recording artists who make audible the same phenomenon. For much of the 20th century in North Africa, Jews and music went hand in hand. So what was the content? What sort of subject matter, style, or genres did musicians bring to Morocco's recording studios in the first half of the 20th century? In Al-Maghribi, we already have a hint, but there was more. Etched between the grooves of records spinning at 78 rotations per minute were songs of love and making love, the classical Andalusian tradition and the Charleston, Malhoun and the condition of being modern, all of it performed, of course, in Arabic. The distribution of this musical material was carried out largely by a class of Jewish concessionaires in urban centers, and by Jewish and Muslim middlemen and itinerant peddlers who brought old and new sounds to the far reaches of the French protectorate and beyond. For scale, we might turn not only to individual recordings, but to the hundreds of thousands of copies of recordings which moved across Morocco already in the interwar period. No passing phenomenon and no phenomenon that passed without notice, French officials observed that some of these records were politically subversive, even nationalist, drawing together large crowds otherwise not permitted to congregate in such numbers, and joining Jews and Muslims in audience despite the best efforts to keep them separate and apart. Outside of colonial control, a canon, a musical canon, was being formed in their midst. But what happened to all of that recorded music? 5 decades of hundreds of hours of audio etched between grooves on records of awkward size and weight, made of the most inelastic of material, vulnerable to mishandling, and containing just a few minutes of music per side, could not have been expected to survive the forward march of technology, let alone war, decolonization, multi-sided migration, and various forms of dislocation. That the records had been lost to time or otherwise was widely accepted as a truism. That their sounds were therefore silenced was a natural consequence. I'm here to tell you that even if left unplayed for half a century or more, survive the records did. Not in traditional archives, but in informal ones. In a testament to the significance of this music, individuals like many in this room grasped these sound objects carefully over great distances and many years, hoping to hear them once again. Answering the unspoken call of these caretakers and stewards, it has been the privilege of my life to gather hundreds of such records from basements to bric-a-brac shops and from Casablanca to Côte de Neige in order to amplify their contents. To listen to a sample of this recorded music, as we are about to do, is to get a visceral sense of epic-making moments etched in time. We thus return to that which began our conversation today, the mid-20th century Moroccan march to independence. Here we will stand as auditory witness to a soundtrack populated as much by Sami al-Maghribi as his co-religionist Albert Suissa, who on 2 different recordings, which we'll hear in a second, on 2 different recordings presented in this mix, not only articulated his feelings of ecstasy related to 1956, but so too to the strength of the Jewish-Muslim bond. Finally, the sample, which we'll hear in just a second, ends with the musician Mohammed Dede, a little-known Muslim artist who recorded for a little-known label in order to make clear that the history this music records was a shared one. Now, what I need to happen right now is for this technology to work, which I assume it will, but just know that sometimes it doesn't. And so I needed to give that caveat. What we're going to hear first is, these are all from the original records and recordings. You're going to hear that these records are old and that they were well loved, okay? Meaning that they don't sound new and pristine always. We're going to hear at the start the spoken introductions that accompanied all of the records of the 78 RPM era. In other words, you're going to hear a cascade of Istwanat records and then the name of the label itself and an announcement of the artists on these labels. So we're going to hear all of these mentioned, and then we're going to return, it's hard to see with the lights, I know, but we're going to return to Sami al-Maghribi, giving an announcement about the provenance of Fi Aid Arshik Ya Sultan before we hear 2 different records by Albert Suissa, or snippets of records by Albert Suissa. You can see on one such record that, in fact, the visage of Mohammed V is there on the record. And then finally, we'll end with Mohammed Dede.
اسطوانات بودرافون محمد ديدي.
اسطوانات صباح سويسا ألبير. اسطوانات صباح ألبير سويسا.
اسطوانات ساميفون بمناسبة عيد عرش سيدي محمد الخامس ملك المغرب، نشيد من نظم وتلحين سامي المغربي. عرشك يا سلطان الشعب يجدد التهاني، كل مغربي اليوم فرحان يفرح قلبي وننشد ألحاني. شجعان الريف والأطلس ركبوا في الخيل ما يعز عليهم، أقادير حتى الفس سلاح جديد والبس ما يوديهم، جايين من المدن والأمراض فرحوا بعيد.
Now Albert سويسرا.
قولوا لي هنية هنية على سلامة سيدي سلطاني. قولوا لي هنية غاب عليا وزني ورضى عليا. عيا قلبي عيا صفر سيدي كان مسافر. عيا قلبي عيا صفر سيدي كان مسافر. واليوم قلبي ظاهر زاني حبيب الخاطر. قولوا لي هنية غاب عليا وزاني ورضى عليا يا فرحية. سلطنا سلطان حنين طيعين له يهود ومسلمين. سلطنا سلطان حنين طيعين له يهود ومسلمين. سيدنا أمير المؤمنين حفظوا ربي الحنين. بن يوسف العالم
I knew this was a crowd I didn't have to give a ululation warning to. To conclude, we turn once again to Sami al-Maghribi. Our departure point is not his nationalist repertoire this time, but his popular records. None, as many of you know, was more popular than Qaftanik Mahalul. A salacious song, and maybe I'll leave this for discussion with neighbors. A salacious song, we'll leave it about an open kaftan. Now, just how popular was it? To consider that question, we come together to listen one last time. Now, we begin with the original, released in Morocco in 1955, which you can see in the upper right corner. By 1955, and that's this record just to the left of it, as a field recording from Israel captures, it had already taken on the air of the folkloric, moving with Moroccan migrants longing for home in a new homeland. By 1959, it was timeless, at least according to the American writer and composer Paul Bowles. But for Bowles, who visited synagogues in Essaouira and Meknes as part of a recording project for the Library of Congress, he heard an ancient quality in it. Little did he know that Rabbi David Buzaglo had layered the melody of Qaftanik Mahalul over his Hebrew liturgical song poem, El Chayram Gadol, Great Living God of Heights, in order to attract Jewish youth to the synagogue through Arabic song. Finally, we muse on what Aomar Boum has so aptly referred to as quote-unquote memories of absence, as we follow al-Maghribi song just over the Moroccan border to Algeria, where 15 years after its original release, a young Muslim artist named Abdul Qadir Brahimi could still be heard singing his Jewish predecessor's mid-century hit, now for a very different audience.
اسطوانات سامي فون سامي المغربي. راني كل مهبول راني راني كل مهبول راني حبك من اليوم بداني خطرت محلول الشهاني باش نبداك واش نقول خطرك محلول يا للا خطرك محلول ياك ما وصل له حد قول لي رايق المهبول
أفضلك محلول يا للا أفضلك محلول أفضلك محلول يا للا أفضلك محلول
الحيرم قاضل أشيرا الحيرم قاضل أهل الإتشي مراد بيت فوبهور أهل الإتشي مراد بيت فوبهور الحيرم قاضل أشيرا
قبطنك محلولة لله قبطنك محلولة قبطنك محلولة لله قبطنك محلولة يا مصر وحافظ اللي رانك المهبول يا مصر وحافظ اللي رانك المهبول.
So let me offer just a few final words. Music is a world. This music was a world. It was a world of consequence, one that joined the extraordinary and the everyday, the sacred and the profane, and Jews and Muslims over vast swaths of territory in time. It was a world that mattered, not only for the musicians mentioned, but for their vast audiences as well. It was a world that we are only beginning to understand now, but one that clearly moved our historical actors. And it is that, understanding what made and makes a society move, that so many of us assembled have dedicated our lives to better comprehending. I can think of no better place to launch a Moroccan Jewish Studies program than at UCLA. As members of the Moroccan Jewish community know well, Moroccan Jewish history resonates in this city. And as I learned long ago from each and every one of the scholars congregated here, history need resonate. Thank you. This may be the first time in my academic career that I now introduce the musicians. And so it is a great honor to introduce Abderrahim Swiri and Moshe Luke and their talented instrumentalists. So thank you.
يا لا لا يا لا لا يا لا يا لا أني وحاي أني الخيام أني وحاي أني الخيام يا لا لا يا لا لا يا لا يا لا اللي المعاد والعالمين يا لا لا يا لا لا يا لا يا لا قدوم الحبيب تمام السرور وكأس المحبة علينا يدور قدوم الحبيب تمام السرور وكأس المحبة علينا يدور là 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 là. Merci. Est-ce que vous comprenez comment c'est difficile de chanter avec Monsieur Souari? C'est vraiment un respect de chanter avec un grand patron comme ça, vraiment. Vraiment.
Et les musiciens,
Bien sûr, avec son orchestre, franchement pour moi, avant que je suis chez vous, ah oui, Younes, le chef d'orchestre, merci. Merci, mais pour moi, vraiment, quand on m'a appelé et on m'a dit avec Souari, j'ai dit, attendez, vous me faites exprès. Bajdoub, il y a 2 ans, maintenant Souari, vous voulez on frappe doucement, pas vraiment, et vraiment, Annie, je sais pas comment on dit, Annie Mitragesh, mais vraiment de chanter avec une grande personnalité comme ça. Quand j'étais tout petit, je voyais, pour moi, c'est Michael Jackson, vous voyez.
Non. تبارك الله عليك تبارك الله عليك فيها تري تري بيل فوا انا كنشوف في التلفزيون كيعجبني الحال وي الا جبال فوا تبارك
Tu
الله
pensais que j'étais un petit peu plus
لا
grand.
بوكو ان شاء الله غتكون عالي دائما
Alors, en fait, on a fait un petit plan parce qu'ils nous ont limité avec l'heure. On va faire, voilà, on a ouvert avec une musique de Ala Andalou. Bien sûr, c'est son grand côté. Et on va faire un peu de Sami, un peu de Salim, un peu de, voilà, un peu de tout. Comme ça va vous rappeler. Jean Aomar, on n'a pas pensé. Si vous venez mardi, on va vous le faire. Et s'il nous reste du temps, on va le faire. Merci, Monsieur Souari. Allah. La prochaine chanson, c'est une kseda, une chanson Shirch ou Sipour, Qsaid, de Sami Maghribi, Ra'ad, mais je vais la faire en hébreu. Parce que la seule fois que j'ai vu Sami, et je lui ai dit, j'ai fait à la synagogue Igdal Elokim Hay, il m'a dit, toi tu dois la chanter rien qu'en hébreu. Alors depuis, je la chante et c'est Le'elu Nishmato, Sami Maghribi. יבוא דודי לגן עדנו אספר חסדל יושב שמיים אזכור מעליה צור הנאמן עמי אוזן הדלי ילד אב אל בנו יגיד דיל אל נדר באישה שמר רב חקוק בינתיים רעה גמנהו העובד חמן לולי היה לי ילד עובד יביא והכל נעקר גלה אוזנו אל חי נוטע אוזניים שוב אל מולדתך נטע נעמן ويسمخ نفيني يلا نتبك طولمان بحما الهان דבריו ספבי נגלה מחניים כל תומרות נדוני אחי הרחמן שור וצאן היה לי יללו עם לבן עדתם גרתי ואחר ושיבו אין בה משתי מאתיים לקרב הוא זמן ראה כי במקלי יללללה עברתי הירדן ענבה יאמר ואתה אמרת אטיב כפלאים וזרע כחול ים כאשר הוא מיומן את אוזן לקולי יללללה בדלי מאחי עברתו שמר זכותי יושע גלים כי חבאים עם שרו של עשב ניצב התכונן וישר כלילי אל מלך ויוכל Pile el neda Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Bravo. Tabarak alaikum. C'est un vrai orchestre. Un plaisir. Merci beaucoup. Alors j'ai vraiment l'honneur d'inviter le grand maestro Abdelrahman Soueri au Nasser Kapaim.
طريق علم مبيا عليم السر هو ليله يعفو لا مبدع جمالك يا نور عيني مبدع جمالك مبدع جمالك يا نور عيني يا نور عيني مبدع جمالك يا لا لا يا لا لا مبدع جمالك وقفت ببابك يا ذا الغنى فقيرا وانت بحالي عالي وقفت ببابك يا ذا الغنى فقيرا وانت بحالي عالي الله الله يونس اللهم صل على المصطفى محمد عليه السلام اللهم صل على المصطفى حبيبنا محمد على السلام ربي حنبيتي يكون معنا لا تصويره المعلم جا المعلم جا المعلم جا
سيبي خبني وشعري خريم سالدي خسابيم سالدي خسابيم سابي بسابيريم بسابيريم وليت سهار روشك شماني سيباي خمنم وشعري خريم Odier. Voilà. Un peu d'effet, s'il vous plaît. أنا مالي فياش وش عليا مني نقلق مع راسك علاش والخالق يرزقني أنا مالي فياش اش عليا مني نقلق مع راسك علاش والخالق يرزقني
يقول لي ما شكون فيكون ويبدئ سبحانه ويعد ويحكم في خلقه ما يشاء ويفعل في ملكه ما يريد
أي مني وش عليا وأنا عبد مملوك ولا شمك ديا ما فضحتك شكوك ربي نذر فيها وأنا مدري متروك في الأرحم والأحشام أنا تصورني أنا مالي فياش وش عليا مني
أني القلق من رزقي لاش والخالق يرزقني
إلا عقد شفحات إمي مرم لباه يا عرقي شمعين قلت عقد نار إيدي حد صوت لي البري بري رضا فني بحر شرهيكا أوتي حسيريا شعب تحدودي شعب تحدودي كوما بتخ شعركيني بهلا نفسي قام نسعر سعر أنا مالي فياش وش عليا أنا راسك علاش مالك يا سكني
من يغيب جمالي لا إله إلا الله ويعون علي لا يرى معي غيري لا إله إلا الله أو يدوق
يعقوب الحسين
خذها كاد شربي ربي يعقوب أبو حسيرة
اللي خذها كادوش ربي
هوا جاي داوينا هوا جاي داوينا هوا جاي داوينا هوا يداوينا هوا جاي
الله 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 يا مولانا
الله 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 يا مولانا
الله 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 يا مولانا
الله 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 يا مولانا
الله 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 العلي
الله 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 وجانا
وحالي شحيلة اليحيدة حكامة ذروتي لا عبودوت بينا لي علم اخبري يوم اخبرينك ملماتي لنبي بالبين الله 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 يا مولانا الله 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 يا مولانا الله 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 ربي داوي حالي الله 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 داوي حالي Merci.
ان كرون تبارك الله قاعدين نقول
واخا
انا
ان
كنشوف التلفزيون كتعجبني
واخا
كوم ارتيست
un grand واخا
لا 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 تبارك الله عليك.
il arrête pas de un grand au fait
سيدي حفظك الله لاباس
alors monsieur Soueri Abdelrahman Soueri il était au Liban The Voice mais The Voice Liban. Alors, ils ont, ouais, des stars, pas les, bien sûr, The Voice des stars, pas le The Voice Kids. Alors, il aura chanté Qui est Shmera Shahabat, bien sûr, en arabe. Et il n'y a rien qu'il a fait. Ah, ils se sont tous retournés. Il a fait vraiment un grand respect aux Marocains et à la musique marocaine. Et MCGILL, il faut vraiment l'applaudir. Et bien sûr, on lui a demandé de faire cette chanson. qui Shmera Shabbat, Utchakemeni, on vous entend, qui Shmera Shabbat, qui Shmera. يا بيت البلدي الله الولي عيني ושלו שתו קדמון לכל דבר אשר נברא ראשון ונראשית לראשיתו بيت بلدي سلموني عيني يا بيت بلدي سلموني عيني والزين اللي فيه قلبي تيمري والزين اللي فيه قلبي تيمري يا بيت بلدي يا بيت بلدي سلموني عيني يا بيت بلدي سلموني عيني والزين اللي فيه قلبي تيمري والزين اللي فيه قلبي تيبغي يا بيت بلدي يا بيت بلدي سلموني عيني يا بيت بلدي سلموني عيني والزين اللي فيه قلبي كيبغي والزين اللي فيه قلبي كيبغي يا سواري أصويري يا بنت البلاد Merci, merci. Allah. Merci, Abdelrahman Soueri. Merci, bien sûr, l'orchestre. Vous êtes informidables. Le chef, Younes. Et si Dieu veut, mardi, c'est à Habanim, à la synagogue, à 7h, à 19h, c'est ça 7h p.m. Bien sûr, là-bas, Enrico Macias, en français, Allah, on est plus libre et on a beaucoup plus de temps. Alors, j'ai quitté mon pays, voilà. On vous attend, si Dieu veut, mardi. Merci beaucoup à tous les organisateurs. Merci beaucoup, professeur. Le Rav, Rav Yoshua, Bitan, Todaraba. Et Richard, merci pour toute l'organisation. Et bien sûr, merci d'être venu nous faire kavod et honneur. Verak Bismachot. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your talent. Thank you for coming. We invite you to support our efforts at UCLA, MoroccanJewishStudies.org, and we look forward to joining with you in the future.